A housing crash is happening this year in these U.S. cities. The U.S. housing market is under siege. As we're edging towards summer, the U.S. is nursing a housing crisis that is ripping its economy apart. With no permanent solution found, the U.S. citizens are fighting this menacing problem as some have lost hope in the government to make their livelihood better. Surprisingly, the housing itch has been in existence for a decade, and the obstacle now has taken a strong trajectory in 2023. As a result, numerous U.S. cities have been affected, and ironically, these areas serve as a pillar of the U.S. economy. So how are we experiencing this housing crash? Which cities are affected? And what is the repercussion of this disaster for citizens?
U.S. home prices are dropping at a historic level.
According to Redfin, the median home sale price in April was down roughly 4% from last year. That's a decline of nearly $18,000.
The U.S. government, through the Fed, can limit the severity of this housing crisis by reducing interest rates. However, the government is doing the exact opposite. Hence, this hurts the housing market. Correspondingly, the Fed has raised interest rates 8 times. This latest move saw a hike from 4.5 to 4.75%. From the trend, we expect a further increase. Precisely, they are benchmarking at 5.1% as a new projection, thereby eliminating all hopes that they may consider decreasing the interest rate. This has attracted high mortgage rates, which has affected the affordability of acquiring new homes. Similarly, there was a drop in home sales because of wary consumers who did not want to risk it all. Moreover, the housing cost has been adjusted to 6.2%, which turns out to be a record-breaking increase ever seen since 1991. The rise in mortgage rates is an indication of a housing crash. As per Bank Rates report at the end of March, the interest for acquiring a home for 3 decades is now 6.52% from a previous 6.48%. The rise has been due to the banking crisis, in which Signature Bank and Silicon Valley Bank collapsed as a consequence. High yields caused by inflation have also seen mortgage prices skyrocket. Per CNN reports, the mortgage rate has been surging for the 5th straight week, and this trend is alarming as seen by how homebuyers are perceiving this situation. Equivalently, there have been few mortgage applications since consumer behavior has also changed. According to the stats of the Mortgage Bankers Association, the number of mortgage applications fell to 6%, since many buyers felt that the terms of purchase are ridiculous. Let us take a statistical tour of the U.S. cities in different states that have been affected by the housing crash. The report is based on 3 main subdivisions that include accommodation units, foreclosures, and the vacancy rate. Accommodation units refer to the number of houses in a particular area, while vacancy rate refers to the percentage of unoccupied houses, and foreclosures refer to the legal right of the lender to take mortgage property when the mortgagor is unable to honor mortgage dues. To begin, El Paso City in Texas has 230,905 accommodation units. 19.48% of houses placed for sale are foreclosures, and the vacancy rate stands at 1.6%. Aurora City in Illinois has 65,128 accommodation units. 77.65% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures, and the vacancy rate stands at 0.9%. Akron City in Ohio has 85,170 accommodation units. 44.13% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures, and the vacancy rate stands at 1.7%. Anchorage City in Alaska has 106,970 accommodation units. 83.33% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures, and their vacancy rate stands at 1.8%. Charleston City in South Carolina has 57,226 accommodation units. 44.21% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures, and the vacancy rate stands at 1.3%. Killeen City in Texas has 54,480 accommodation units. 11.9% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures, and the vacancy rate stands at 3.9%. Wilmington City in North Carolina has 53,830 accommodation units. 84.56% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures. The vacancy rate stands at 1.1%. Little Rock City in Arkansas has 83,500 225 accommodation units, 10.34% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures, and the vacancy rate stands at 2.4%. Evansville City in Indiana has 51,706 accommodation units. 28.01% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures. The vacancy rate stands at 2.1%. Tulsa in Oklahoma has 163,368 accommodation units. 29.81% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures, and the vacancy rate stands at 2%. Miami in Florida has 180,676 accommodation units. 28.01% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures, and the vacancy rate is at 2.2%. New York City in New York has 3,191,691 accommodation units. 70.88% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures. The vacancy rate is at 1.8%. Baltimore in Maryland has 242,499 accommodation units. 28.7% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures, and the vacancy rate is at 3.1%. Meanwhile, Baton Rouge in Louisiana has 85,091 accommodation units. 19.54% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures, and the vacancy rate is at 1.6%. Mobile, Alabama has 78,089 accommodation units. 24,003% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures, and the vacancy rate is at 1.8%. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania has 613,125 accommodation units. 59.27% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures. The vacancy rate is at 1.5%. Augusta, Georgia has 70,891 accommodation units. 23.81% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures. Vacancy rate is at 3.1%. Newark, New Jersey has 102,195 accommodation units. 74.96% of homes placed for sale are foreclosures, and the vacancy rate is at 2.8%. And lastly, Springfield, Massachusetts has 56,804 accommodation units, with 79.75% of homes placed for sale being foreclosures, and the vacancy rate stands at 1%. From the survey, we can recognize that we are witnessing a significant percentage of homes placed on sale as a result of foreclosures. So what does this mean? This means that numerous mortgagors are struggling to make ends meet. Conversely, we can still see that there is some vacancy in numerous cities since many cannot afford the current cost of housing. These two observations summarize the tale of the crash of the housing market and how a lot of people are feeling the impact of the price adjustments. The U.S. citizens are suffering from the current inflation, which is driving prices of assets up. The government, which is seen as the light of hope, is now the enemy of hope, since their efforts are making the economic system shift from bad to worse. Their approach of raising the interest rates has led to numerous citizens facing job cuts, because companies are also struggling to deal with enormous wage bills. The high rate of unemployment has substantially contributed to the housing crash. For example, many mortgagors depend on their jobs to service mortgage payments. So when a mortgagor is fired, he or she will struggle to make payments since their source of income is depleted. This now drives a homeowner into psychological distress because the mortgagee wants their payments, regardless of the situation one is facing. Not to forget, the mortgagor has a family to feed and other debts to pay apart from the mortgage loan. This single-handedly tortures the homeowner into depression because of the extent of the financial slavery he or she is facing. As a result, they find a reason to notify a mortgagee that they want them to extend the deadline so that they can facilitate the loan payment. Buying time is not an assurance that financial obligations will be made by the mortgagor. As a consequence, many homeowners have been kicked out by mortgagees because of the lack of commitment by mortgagors to make payments even when the deadlines are extended. The cost of affordable housing is now a thing of the past, as many former homeowners are homeless, while some have resorted to going back to the rural areas in search of a cheap livelihood. On the other side, mortgagees have not also been spared by inflationary pattern of U.S. economy. Likewise, they have also gone into big losses, since many mortgagors have defaulted on loans thereby limiting the ability of mortgagees to refinance themselves. Mortgagees like banks have faced a loss of $620 billion due to high interest rates. This has resulted in mortgage companies reducing their staff because of high operating costs. For instance, Wells Fargo fired 110 employees. Owning Corporation terminated 200 jobs. Redfin laid off 121 employees. Stearns Lending eliminated 348 employees. PenMac fired 236 employees, and USAA Bank did away with 100 employees. Scary enough, this is a small representation of many numerous layoffs happening among the mortgage companies. Those who depend on such jobs to put food on the table are resorting to hunger and poverty, which has made some engage in crime as a means of survival. Furthermore, many mortgagees have placed their properties for sale after making foreclosures on homeowners who defaulted payments. However, this move has been fruitful since the sales have deteriorated significantly. The dents made by this housing crash are visible, and what is about to happen tomorrow remains mysterious. Thus, this calls for people to prepare for tougher times ahead.